I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, I thought I knew everything about my marriage with Lisa. We've been together for over 10 years, marriage, 2 kids, a nice house, the usual suburban life. At least that's what I thought. Things started feeling off a few months ago, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. She became more irritable, snapping at me over small things, avoiding me sometimes, staying out late with work friends or book clubs. She always had an excuse for everything, and I bought it for a while. I mean, I've always tried to give her space, respect her independence, and trust her. But the signs kept piling up. It all really hit me when I started helping the kids fill out scholarship applications for college. I was using the family computer one night, and I noticed the browser was still open on some messaging app, one I didn't recognize. Curious, I peeked at the messages, thinking maybe I'd find some funny exchanges or something innocent. But what I saw made my stomach turn. There were texts, explicit and flirty, between Lisa and the high school counselor, Mr. Jensen. They had been exchanging messages for months, and some of the stuff was downright inappropriate. Talks about meeting up, secretive plans, even comments about her needing to be satisfied. It was as if our entire marriage was just a cover-up for her little affair. I couldn't believe it. I sat there, stunned, staring at her words, her flirtation, her blatant disrespect. How could she do this with someone who was supposed to be helping our daughter, who was supposed to look out for her future? I felt betrayed on every level. It was like my whole world crumbled in that moment. I mean, I knew Lisa had always been bitchy, but I never thought she'd cheat on me with our daughter's counselor. And the worst part, she lied about everything, said she was busy with work, said she was stressed, called me paranoid when I confronted her. But I knew the truth, plain as day. She had been cheating on me for months, and I was just too blind or too trusting to see it. That discovery changed everything. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there staring at the screen, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. How could she do this? What kind of person cheats on their husband, especially with someone involved in their kids' education? It felt like a punch to the gut, and I kept asking myself if I was just naive or if I'd missed all the signs. I kept replaying everything, the little irritations, the late nights, her secretive phone calls, and it all made sense now. She was playing us all for fools. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know what to expect or how I'd handle it. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear her lie her way out of this again, or if I had the strength to face the truth head-on. That's when I started to realize that my marriage was already broken. This wasn't some petty fight or misunderstanding. It was something deep, something I couldn't ignore anymore. The trust was gone. The woman I thought I knew was someone else entirely. And now I had to decide what to do next. Would I forgive, try to fix this mess, or was it over? I didn't have an answer yet, but I knew that whatever I chose, it was going to change my life forever. The next morning, I woke up with that heavy feeling in my chest, the kind that sticks around and refuses to let go. I kept thinking about the messages I saw, the way Lisa had been lying to me all this time. I didn't want to jump to conclusions without talking to her, but I also knew I couldn't ignore the evidence staring me in the face. I needed to hear her side, no matter how much it hurt. Honestly, part of me was hoping I'd be wrong, that maybe there was some innocent explanation. But deep down, I knew better. I waited until she was getting ready for work, pretending everything was normal. She was being her usual bitchy self, snapping at me for not doing something right, throwing a sarcastic comment about how I should leave her alone so she can get to work. I could see the disdain in her eyes, but I kept my composure. I didn't want to tip my hand yet. Instead, I brought up the computer, casually mentioning I'd been helping the kids with scholarship forms. Then I played dumb, asking if she'd noticed anything unusual, like emails or messages she might have forgotten about. That's when she got defensive immediately. "What are you talking about, Jacob? You think I have time for some stupid affair? You're just paranoid, probably just some guy she met online or something silly like that." Her voice sounded strained and her tone was dismissive, but I wasn't buying it. I pushed a little more, asking about her phone, about her recent interactions with the counselor. She rolled her eyes, scoffing, and said, "I don't have time for your accusations. I'm busy with work and the kids. You're just trying to start shit because you're insecure." I could see her trying to brush it off, but I wasn't buying her act anymore. I knew she was lying. She was always good at that, blaming me, brushing things under the rug, pretending everything was fine. But her body language was different this time. Her eyes flickered, her voice cracked slightly. I knew she was hiding something. After a while, she stormed out the door, leaving me alone with my thoughts and that gnawing sense that I'd uncovered something I'd never get back. Once she left, I couldn't resist the urge anymore. I pulled out my phone and searched her. Messages, just a quick glance, just to verify. And there it was, more explicit texts, plans to meet up, excuses for missing family dinners, and the worst part, a picture of her and Jensen smiling and close with a caption saying, "Can't wait to see you tonight." That was the moment I knew the truth wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was real. She was cheating on me actively with someone our daughter's supposed to trust. This wasn't some harmless flirtation. It was an affair, and I was furious. I felt like a fool. I had trusted her all these years, and she'd been lying straight to my face. I also felt that cold, familiar rage building up inside me. I wanted to confront her immediately, demand answers, but I knew I had to think carefully about my next move. I couldn't just accuse her without a plan, especially since she was so good at twisting things around. I decided I'd wait until she got home that evening, then lay everything out. I wanted her to know I knew. I wanted her to face the consequences of her actions. The betrayal was huge. It felt like my entire world was crashing down. Around me, I kept asking myself, how did I miss all this? How did she manage to hide it for so long? Meanwhile, I started feeling the weight of it all, the embarrassment, the anger, the heartbreak. I was furious at Jensen for betraying my daughter's trust and at Lisa for letting it happen. But mostly I was hurt deeply. How could she do this to us, to me, to our family? I kept replaying those texts, those stolen moments she thought I'd never find out about. All the lies, the sneaking around. I wondered how many other lies there were, how long she'd been hiding it. It was like I suddenly saw her in a whole new light, no longer the woman I loved, but someone capable of betrayal, deception, and lying. That evening, I waited in the living room, heart pounding, knowing the storm was about to hit. I didn't know what I was going to say or do, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine anymore. The truth was out, and I had to face it head on. The question was, how much damage could be done before I even started trying to fix what was broken? Or was I finally going to accept that this marriage might be over? I didn't have an answer yet, but I was starting to realize I'd been living in denial for too long. Now, everything had changed, and I couldn't go back. When Lisa finally came home that evening, I was sitting on the couch, my hands clenched tightly in my lap. I'd already prepared myself for her to deny everything, to make some bullshit excuse about how it was just a mistake. Or maybe she'd turn it around and blame me for being paranoid. But I knew better. I knew what I saw, and I wasn't going to let her gaslight me into silence. She walked in, all bitchy attitude and that pretentious smirk she always had when she thought she was smarter than everyone else. Without wasting words, I just pulled out my phone and showed her the messages. The look on her face, God, I won't forget it, was priceless. Her eyes widened for a second, then she quickly tried to recover. "That's not what it looks like," she said, her voice dripping with that fake innocence. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. You're just insecure, Jacob. Jensen is just helping with college stuff, that's all. You're overreacting because you're paranoid." I stared at her, feeling that rage flare again. Helping with college stuff, really? Because those texts don't look like a counselor giving advice. They look like two people who want to fuck each other. How long has this been going on, Lisa? Tell me the truth. I was trying to keep my voice steady, but inside I was boiling. I needed her to own up, to admit what she'd been doing. I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of it this time. She sat down heavily on the couch, rolling her eyes, and crossed her arms. "Look, Jacob, you're making this into some big drama. Jensen's just a guy I talk to sometimes about the kids' futures. It's nothing serious. You're just jealous because I'm successful, because I don't sit around whining like you do. I don't need your bullshit accusations ruining everything. If you're going to be like this, maybe we should just end it now." Her face was full of contempt, like she thought she was doing me a favor by pretending she didn't care. I felt a visceral need to press her further to make her admit the truth. But part of me was also hurt beyond words. I thought about all the years we'd spent together, the birthdays, the vacations, the nights I stayed up with her when she was stressed. And now I saw her for what she really was, a liar, a cheater, someone willing to betray us all just for her own gratification. That's when I realized I couldn't stay silent anymore. I told her I knew about the texts, about Jensen, about everything. I told her I wasn't going to be the fool anymore, pretending I didn't see what she was doing behind my back. Her reaction was nothing like I expected. Instead of breaking down or begging for forgiveness, she scoffed at me and her tone turned even bitchier. "You really think I care what you think? Honestly, Jacob, you're pathetic. You're always so insecure, so jealous. Maybe you're the one who needs to get a life instead of snooping around private messages. I don't owe you any explanations. If I want to sleep with Jensen, that's my business, not yours." She looked at me with pure disdain, like I was some kind of obstacle she needed to get rid of. That hit me hard, not just because she was still lying, but because she didn't even bother to deny it anymore. Her words were venom, and I felt the pain of betrayal stabbing deep. I sat there, stunned, unable to speak for a moment. How could she treat me like this? How could she lie so blatantly? I'd always thought I was a decent husband, supportive, caring, the type who'd do anything for his family. But now I saw her for what she truly was, a selfish, manipulative bitch who was willing to cheat and lie her way through our marriage just to feel desired. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. That night I realized I was at a crossroads. Do I fight for this marriage? Try to forgive, forget, and move on? Or do I accept that she's turned into someone I no longer recognize? The thought of staying, of pretending everything was fine for the sake of the kids, suddenly felt impossible. My inner world was collapsing, and I felt more alone than I ever had. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do something, anything to make her understand how much she'd hurt me. But I also knew I had to keep my dignity. So I told her I needed time, told her I'd think about everything. She just shrugged, got up, and said, "Good, take all the time you want. But I'm not going to be waiting around for some stupid apology." That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I thought about what I'd lost, the trust, the respect, the partnership I'd built over the years. I wondered how long she'd been cheating, how many of her stories were lies, and whether I'd ever truly know the truth. I felt a mixture of heartbreak and rage, knowing that my life had been turned upside down by someone I thought I knew. The pain was sharp, but beneath it, a strange sense of clarity was starting to emerge. I knew this wasn't the end, not yet. But I also knew I couldn't go on pretending everything was normal anymore. Something had to give. And I was just beginning to realize that I might have to make a choice I'd never thought I'd have to make. The days that followed were pure chaos. I couldn't get her words, her actions, or those damn texts out of my head. Every time I saw her, her smirk, her dismissiveness, they all cut me deeper. Honestly, I felt like I was spiraling, caught between outrage and heartbreak. Part of me wanted to confront her again, demand she come clean, but I knew that wouldn't do any good. She was too good at lying, at spinning a story that made her look innocent while I was left with a rising anger I couldn't suppress. I started doing my own digging. I didn't tell her. I didn't trust her enough to give her a chance to spin her web. I went through her phone when she was asleep, checked her social media, her emails. I wanted to understand how long she'd been fooling around, what she'd been telling Jensen behind my back. And what I found was worse than I expected. There were messages, not just flirtatious, but downright dirty. They discussed meetings, secret locations, plans that made my stomach churn. Jensen wasn't just some counselor. He was a full-blown lover, and Lisa had been hiding it from me all this time. That discovery made me feel sick. For a while, I'd convinced myself that maybe I was overreacting, that maybe it was just a fling, a mistake. But now I knew it was something else, something serious. She'd been lying, sneaking around, betraying her own family. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, and everything I thought I knew about her shattered in an instant. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could she betray everything we built, everything I had loved about her? I was furious. Not just hurt, but furious. I wanted to confront her again, but I also knew that I had to have a plan. I couldn't just lose my temper and say something I'd regret. So I decided to wait for the perfect moment, when she'd least expect it, and lay everything out in the open. I wanted her to see that I knew that I wasn't going to be played anymore. I also knew I had to prepare myself emotionally. This wasn't just about catching her cheating. It was about what kind of person she really was and whether I could still even trust her again. That night, I sat on the porch, thinking everything over. I was furious, yes, but there was also a strange clarity. I realized I'd been giving her too much power for too long. I turned a blind eye to her bitchy attitude, her lying, her manipulations. Somehow, I thought I could fix this, that love and patience would somehow patch things up. But the truth was, she had been drifting away into Jensen's arms, into her own little world where she could be whoever she wanted. And I was just left holding the pieces of a marriage I thought was strong. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I remembered all those nights I stayed up, trying to be supportive, trying to be understanding, while she was out there screwing around. I felt stupid. I felt betrayed. And beneath it all, I felt this burning desire to make her pay for what she'd done. I wasn't ready to end things just yet, but I knew I couldn't let her keep doing this without consequences. I needed a plan, something that would make her regret crossing me, that would show her she couldn't treat me like a fool and get away with it. The next day, I started to prepare. I reached out to a lawyer, just to understand my options. I also started gathering evidence, screenshots, messages, photos from her phone. I wasn't planning to rush into anything, but I wanted to be ready if I decided to confront her again. I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her continue this bullshit without paying the price. I also wondered if she'd realized I was onto her, if she was starting to feel the heat. Whatever her game was, I was about to turn the tables. It was strange, really. For all these years, I've been the one to try to keep the peace, to fix things when they went wrong. But now I was finally taking control. I was sick of being the nice guy, the one who turned the other cheek. This betrayal had changed everything. I was done being passive. I wanted her to see that I was serious. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't just some pushover. That evening, I sat down and drafted what I knew would be the hardest conversation of my life. I didn't know how she'd react, but I was prepared to reveal everything without fear or hesitation. I'd get to the truth, no matter what it cost me. The day I finally decided to confront her, I could feel my nerves tightening in my chest. I stayed up all night, preparing what I was going to say, how I'd lay out everything I'd discovered. I wanted her to see that I wasn't bluffing, that I had all the evidence in the world. I knew she'd try to deny, spin, manipulate. She always did, but I was ready this time. I was done playing nice. I needed her to face the consequences of what she'd done, and I needed to see if she even cared about the damage she'd caused. When she got home that evening, she was her usual bitchy self, snapping at the kids, throwing her coat on the chair, acting like she owned the place. I waited until she was halfway through her glass of wine before I finally spoke. I sat her down, looked her straight in the eyes, and pulled out my phone with the damning evidence. I laid it all out, texts, pictures, screenshots, everything that proved she'd been cheating on me with Jensen, our daughter's counselor. Her face twisted in a mixture of anger and contempt. "What the hell is this?" she spat, trying to act innocent, but her voice trembled just enough to betray her. "You're crazy, Jacob. You're just jealous, insecure, like always. Jensen is just helping our daughter, and you're twisting it into something it's not. You're making a mountain out of a molehill like you always do." I didn't flinch. I pushed the phone toward her. "No, Lisa, you're the one who's crazy. All these messages, the plans to meet, the pictures. You're the one who's been lying to me. How long has this been going on? How long have you been screwing around with Jensen behind my back?" My voice was steady, but inside I was boiling. I wanted her to own her shit, to admit what she'd been doing. I knew I wouldn't get a real apology, but I needed her to at least recognize the truth. She looked at the evidence, then scoffed again, that bitchy sneer upon her face. "You're always so paranoid, Jacob. You see what you want to see. Maybe you're the one who's been cheating all along, huh? Maybe you're projecting your own shit onto me." Her tone was full of venom, trying to turn it around, to flip the script, but I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. "I'm tired of your lies," I said, voice low but firm. "I'm tired of the games and the sneaking around. I want the truth. How long has this been going on? Did Jensen just help with college stuff or was it something more? I could see her eyes flicker. She was caught and she knew it. Still, she refused to admit anything. Instead, she looked at me with that haughty attitude, pretending she was above it all. "None of your business," she snapped. "You're making a scene for no reason. Jensen's just a counselor and I don't owe you explanations. If you're so damn insecure, maybe you should work on yourself instead of accusing me of bullshit." She stood up, trying to act like she was dismissing me, but I saw the anger behind her eyes. That's when I snapped. I told her that I knew everything. The texts, the plan, the pictures, and I wasn't going to sit around and pretend I was okay with her betraying me and our family. I told her I was done trusting her, at least for now, and that I was going to figure out what to do next. I saw her lips tighten, her jaw clench, and I knew the fight was far from over. But I also knew I'd made my point clear. She couldn't lie her way out of this anymore. Her eyes flashed with rage. "You're crazy, Jacob. You're just jealous because I don't need you anymore. Jensen makes me feel alive, and you're just a boring piece of shit who couldn't keep his wife happy. Maybe you're the one who should be worrying about your own shit instead of throwing accusations around." She stormed out of the room, leaving me sitting there, feeling a strange mixture of relief and deep pain. I'd finally laid it all bare, and now it was her turn to respond. Honestly, I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I felt a strange sense of liberation. For the first time in a long while, I'd taken control. I'd shown her I wasn't going to be a pushover anymore. Whether she stayed or left, I knew I'd done everything I could to face the truth head-on. I could feel a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, I'd start rebuilding my life without her lies and betrayal hanging over me. The next steps weren't clear yet, but I knew I wouldn't stay quiet. I deserved better than that. All I knew was that I'd finally taken back some of the power she tried to steal from me, and that realization gave me a strange sense of strength I'd been missing for a long time. In the days that followed, everything felt like it was unraveling. I hadn't spoken much, just processed what I'd uncovered and what it meant for my life moving forward. Every time I looked at Lisa, I saw her differently. No longer the woman I once loved, but someone I barely recognized. The betrayal cut so deep I wondered if I'd ever feel whole again. Still, there was a strange clarity that came with finally facing the truth. I realized I'd spent years trying to keep everything together, pretending that her bitchy attitude, her lies, and her affairs weren't real. But now I saw that the only way to heal was to accept what was real, no matter how ugly or painful it was. I decided I needed to protect myself and my kids from her toxicity. I spoke to a lawyer and started the process of separation. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, not after she'd lied and cheated so blatantly. I also made sure to gather all the evidence I had, just in case things got nasty or she tried to deny everything in court. Deep down, I knew I was better off without her, but that didn't make the pain any easier. It felt like losing a part of myself, a part I'd been holding onto for years. Still, I was determined to move on, to rebuild and find the strength I'd lost. The hardest part wasn't just ending the marriage, it was the emotional fallout. I felt anger, sadness, and even guilt for staying so long in a relationship that was never truly honest. I kept thinking about our daughter and how her innocence had been tainted in this mess. I wanted to protect her from the ugliness of adult betrayal, to shield her from the fallout. It hurt to see her confused and upset, and I knew I had to be strong for her sake. I also promised myself I wouldn't let this define me. I'd come out of this battered, yes, but also wiser and more aware of what I needed from life and from people. One thing I've learned through all of this is that honesty is everything. When trust is broken, it's almost impossible to repair, especially if it's been shattered so completely. I've realized that some people, no matter how much you love them, just aren't worth fighting for if they choose to betray you repeatedly. And sometimes, the only way to find peace is to walk away and rebuild from scratch. I'm not there yet, but I know I will be. I've started working on myself, going to therapy, focusing on my kids, and rediscovering what makes me happy. Looking back, I see how much I let her manipulate me, how I stayed quiet for too long hoping things would change. I won't make that mistake again. I deserve honesty and respect, and so do my kids. We're going to be okay, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Never ignore the signs and never settle for being lied to or betrayed. Trust your instincts, stand your ground, and don't be afraid to walk away. If you have to, life's too short to stay in something that's only draining you of your happiness and self-respect. So I'm moving forward one step at a time. I'm choosing to see this as the end of a dark chapter and the start of something new. It's not easy, and I know there will be more pain and tough days ahead. But I also know that I've finally faced the truth, and that's the first step to healing. I won't forget what she did, but I refuse to let it control me. I'm reclaiming my life, my peace, and my dignity. And for anyone out there going through something similar, trust me, you're stronger than you think, and you deserve better than betrayal. Keep fighting, keep healing, and never let anyone take away your sense of worth.